Hi, my name is Peter Walker, and I want to cut a brief reflection on John 14:27. Jesus speaking to peace. We often think of Jesus as bringing peace. Everywhere he went, every time he showed up, it was always peace be with you or do not fear. But this verse has always confused me a little bit because in John 14:27, Jesus says, "My peace I give you, my peace I leave you, not as the world gives it, do I give it to you." And I've been reflecting on that actually more than I even know cognizantly. But I just want to share some reflections on that. Um, the peace that Jesus leaves with us and what he promised to leave. Um, he always had such strong words. He would bring forgiveness of sin, and he would also bring admonition to obey and to follow him. So in John 6, he would feed the 5,000 people, such mercy, such power and miracles. But then the very next day, they'd follow him, and they were looking for more food, and he would challenge them immediately and say, "You're not here because you've seen the miracles and the power of God. You're here because you had something to eat." He was full of mercy and grace, and he was also a straight talker because he was after the heart. So what kind of peace does he give? Well, I think also in terms of the character of God, when God wrestled with Jacob through the night, and the next day, as a prize to Jacob, he's saying, Jacob's holding on to him, saying, "I won't let you go until you bless me." And the angel leaves him with an injured hip, and he says, "This is so you know that you wrestled with God and you overcame, you won, and your prize is an injured hip. You will limp to know your proximity to God and even your favor." Moses, he walked with God in a way that was set apart. Anyone who went up against him, his brother, his sister, they were stricken with leprosy. Grounds were opening up and swallowing people. Such favor for Moses, and yet God did not let him enter Canaan. He left him with something lacking, something big, something of earthly value that he withheld from these people that were so close to him. You remember, Moses appeared with Jesus on the mountain in the transfiguration. Moses was close with God, but Moses, of all people, was not allowed to enter into Canaan. God often leaves people with a prize that is not as the world gives a prize. Paul, 1 Corinthians 12 or 2 Corinthians 12, he has a thorn in his side. Paul was so faithful to God, in pursuit of God. God allows him to have some kind of tormenting experience and will not take it away. Says, "Paul, my grace is sufficient for you." So some of these mighty men of God were left with something lacking in terms of earthly value. And so Jesus comes in, John 14:27, "My peace I give you, my peace I leave you," but it's different. It's not the peace the world gives. Maybe you've experienced that. Often where Jesus calls us into a life and a walk with him, we don't feel more settled in ourselves. We actually feel more fragmented. We feel insecure. The winds are blowing through our soul. But we know that we're in a road and we're standing in faith on principles that are true. It might leave us lonely. John 16:33, Jesus said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." So what is the kind of peace that Jesus is leaving us? Well, it's different. It's a different kind of peace, and it's not the same as the world gives it. So the way we look for peace in the world, I don't know, where's your beach? The peace Jesus leaves, it's different, and the way to it is different. And so just to I'm really seeking to encourage people. Don't always look at the way you're experiencing or even feeling or even thinking to claim peace with God and to call something peace. You might be in torment, as Paul was, 2 Corinthians 12:9, but he had a peace that was different. God was talking to him. God was right there. God communicated, I have purpose in this, Paul. What kind of peace do we value most? What kind of peace are we looking for? And what do we call peace? You might be in deep soul anguish about who you are, identity. Maybe you're in a very good place. Maybe you, in fact, do have peace, but it's not the way you feel it or what you would typically call it. But maybe it is a peace of a different kind that God is giving you. So we have to be very careful how we interpret and what we call peace. I could go on and on. A lot of my videos speak to this issue of identity, of knowing in part. 1 Corinthians 13:9, 1 John 3, 2, speaking of how in this life we are imbued and calibrated by darkness and sin. And so we know in part. And so sometimes what God is giving us that is good for us, that is true peace, that is true identity, that is true security, standing on faith, Hebrews 11:6, it's not going to feel like the peace that we have come to define as peace according to the values of this world. True peace, what's it worth?